We have the honor on the eve of Florida State's Tallahassee Regional to be joined by Florida State head baseball coach Link Jarrett here on Warchant TV for a one-on-one. Coach, first of all, congratulations on a regular season, a very successful one that saw your program earn a top 8 national seed. And thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. It's great. It's a reward. And we talk a lot about from first pitch of this up until the end of the conference tournament, you're not in this conversation or this position if you haven't performed well out of the gate, through the midweeks, through the conference, and even really, quite frankly, through the conference tournament. Like every one of those games has impact and meaning. It's got ramifications. It's hard to be perfect, and clearly we were not. But at the end of the day, when the dust settles, these guys delivered the result that put them in position to not only have this event here, but if we can get to the finish line in this, and you have a chance to be here again next weekend. This is as deep and as tough a regional as I've been a part of. I've lost track of how many of these I've been in. They're not easy. I think the seeding, you can almost throw this out the window in this particular event. You can take the RPIs and you can chunk all of that at this time of year. And I think ours is as difficult as any that I saw as these things rolled through with the bracketing. So everybody in it, including us, our hands are completely full with difficulty and talent and challenges.
I do want to talk about one regional you've been a part of, and that was your last one as a player. And lead up to this interview, Coach, I wanted to see when was the last time you played at Dick Howser Stadium as a player. And lo and behold, I don't know if you know this, but it was 30 years ago today, May the 30th, 1994. It was your Seminoles taking on BYU, punching your ticket to Omaha for the last time in the Tallahassee Regional. And I'm just wondering, 30 years ago, you had professional baseball in your immediate future, but did you ever think that maybe, just maybe, this might be a part of the long-term plan where you could lead a program like yours, like Florida State, out onto that field in a regional setting?
Well, everything you learn in the college game starts with your foundation that Coach Martin provided me, and this program allowed me to be a part of, and I wasn't a heralded recruit. So just to have a chance, when 11 gave me a chance to be on the team, that changed so much in my world. And I grew so much under his watch and the assistant coaches that impacted what I was doing. You always envision things like when you decide to get into coaching, you do think through the opportunities that may exist. And no, I didn't know that this was ever going to be one. And I'm fortunate that it was. And we have the best fans and following and atmosphere of anywhere I've ever been. I've coached in the SEC. I've seen it all. And that's what means the most to me when I reflect on not only what it felt like 30 years ago, but what it feels like now and looking to tomorrow and beyond. What the people around the program mean and the energy and the passion they bring to the table as they watch these guys perform. And that dates way back. Some of the people they're the same folks that were here when I was kicking it around out there at shortstop, and we're going to see a lot of them in the stands tomorrow and through the weekend. So it's really a special place. It's the most important thing for me, and I want to see our guys perform and let the fans continue to enjoy the passion and the way these guys have played the game dating back through the middle of February.
We'll get to the matchup with Stetson specifically in just a moment, but you just got done saying that this could be the most difficult field, regional field across the country. And so for folks that are going to be either attending the games this weekend or if they're going to be watching on television, all the games as these 4 teams battle each other, what do you see out of Alabama and UCF? And generally speaking, what can folks expect out of these 4 teams in the Tallahassee Regional?
Well, everybody's a little bit different. Like Stetson's very athletic. They run the bases. Alabama, good quality pitching depth, dynamic offensively. UCF gives you a little bit of everything. The bunting game probably more in play for them than some of the other teams. But everybody's got their own personality. As you get into it, like regardless of what you see on paper, the game evolves differently than you may expect. And the personality and the personnel on a team, sometimes it doesn't play out to match the stats and match the things you think you could have going into the game. So we tend to look this time of the year at what positions our personnel most suitably to get to the finish line and deliver the result in a tournament. It is, in essence, a weekend of baseball, but it's different than a 3-game series against the same opponent. So when we look at how we map it out, knowing our pitching, like you're going to see Dorsey tomorrow start it, and then we've got the whole arsenal available out of the bullpen. Like the bullpen's as fresh as it's been. We didn't play all week. We played a long time into Sunday, but we didn't have a midweek game. So you're really as fresh as you get. Jamie has clearly shown us the most length out of the start. So we thought throwing him in the Saturday game gave you a chance to hopefully lengthen him out. He's clearly going to be really fresh. And then you're going to have to recycle guys that threw Friday later in the event. So having some length in the second game for our situation seems like it gave us the best chance to get through it. It's not really who we're playing. Everybody in this is good. It's really what we have. So we didn't want to get stuck in a situation where we almost felt like we had to staff or piggyback guys 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row. It still may get to that, but you have the opportunity to try to align it with your personnel now.
So was this a tough call this week to line it up that way, 1-2, or did you kind of know in advance that if you're in a position where you can host and you can dictate, first pitches, and I'll ask a question about that in a little bit about early versus late. But was this an easier call in that sense about lining it up with Dorsey going 1 and then Jamie pitching on Saturday?
Yeah, we talked about it a lot. I'm not going to say it was easy. It's not easy. You just want it to be the right thing for your personnel and your staff. That's the most important thing, is what we have in that locker room and how that group can get to the end game result of finding a way to win this with what we have. It wasn't about any one of the opponents. Like, all of the opponents are extremely good. So it wasn't really, there's no matchup thought at all. This is a personnel thought. And we felt like trying to staff one of the games up front and length in the middle, and then you're going to have to staff and work your way through the other ones. It's not saying we can't get good starts out of some guys, but you have to go into it with what you've seen most consistently out of the personnel. So that's how we aligned it.
And then related to that, you earn the right for dealer's choice of how to lay out when you play on Friday, when you play your first game. So going with that noon start against Stetson, was that about space, time, recovery to put yourself in the best position to be successful for the weekend, or was it some other reason that you decided to go with the first game of the regional?
No, Tom, that's right. It's that you get out of the gates and play that game. And we all know this time of year with the storms and the weather and the lightning, the chances of getting out of the gate and getting that game completed is probably better the earlier you do it. So then you get to see the other two teams play, and the losing teams have to come back and play early the next day, and the winning teams play later. So in essence, you do find yourself in a night game if you can somehow win. And if you don't, you're not having to jump back from a 7:00 start, or I've started games at 9:00 at night in these things, to flip around. You're trying to make sure you protect and align with what you feel like gives your players, your athletes, the best chance to have sustained success in a lengthy event.
That makes total sense. Coach, just a question about your lineup and then one about Stetson before we let you go. But this, in terms of power, this group 1 through 9 this year has been amongst the most powerful dating back to your time in the 90s. The home runs they're hitting left and right this year. Did you anticipate from fall ball, or maybe before the season started, that this could be this good of a lineup in terms of 1 through 9? Again, there's power in a lot of places. James Tibbs is the ACC Player of the Year, but you've got a lot of players with more than a half dozen home runs, more than 10 home runs. Did you know that was possible before the season started?
Yeah, I did. You recruit this. So this time last year, we're recruiting it, and you're trying to build it, and you're trying to find left-handed bats. You're trying to find right-handed balance in there. Clearly, the right-handed hitter is a little easier to find than the left-handed hitter. And then Faro's a switch hitter. And when you build this thing, it has a nice rhythm and flow to it because I like to go left, right if I can. You can't always do that, but we really come close to doing that. And you have Jackson West, a left-handed hitter, Holbrook's a right-handed hitter. Max Williams has been a big part of it. You have Diamez. So it really lines up on paper to look how you want it to look. Then when you get into fall practice and you see the capability and the intent that some of these guys have with what they're doing at the plate, you start to realize that you have a chance to have a damaging offensive group. The extra base hit, the home run, those are huge. I think the caliber of pitching in college baseball, I know the numbers may not tell you that, but with how professional baseball shrunk the draft and shrunk teams, there's older, better pitchers in the game right now, and there's older, better hitters. I know the ball seems really hot, so it looks more offensive, but it's still not easy to string 6 hits together against the arms we see. So the extra base hit and that explosive capability adds a dimension to the offense that clearly helps as the games are played at a higher level.
It also seems like the strike zone's been tightened a little bit too this year, especially. But I'm sure that's a frustrating thing. Go ahead. You were nodding.
It seems like as we've used the TrackMan to evaluate, and all of this information that's plugged in behind home plate goes right to Major League Baseball, and the umpiring review crew has that data, it has shrunk east to west a little bit. And I think what we've seen in the big leagues as they got into the grading through the TrackMan first is I think the strike zone has increased to the north a little bit. So I feel like as we keep using these metrics to evaluate the umpires, I think we'll slowly see that strike zone raise a little bit to maybe make up for some of the side to side that has dissipated in recent years. I'm all in favor of the up and down strike. It's hittable. There were times when a pitch 8 inches off the plate that was thrown well, that was caught well, was a strike. It's not hittable. At least something a little up and a little down is able to be hit, where some of them at times that were so far off the plate clearly were not hittable. So I think we have to find that. And in the offensive game, clearly right now is exciting. The ball's hot. So I think the more we use this system of grading, I think we'll see our zone maybe top to bottom increase. It needs to be based on the hitter. The TrackMan box doesn't change width-wise, right? But
right.
If Aaron Judge is up and then Altuve's up, is that box top to bottom the same? So we still have to grow with how we're using the modern technology to evaluate and grade this stuff.
Yeah, you're certainly right. There were some times where it seemed like the 97 NLCS, that Levan Hernandez start, where there were just unhittable pitches being called in the other batter's box, and that can't happen either. So that's understandable. To the game that's right in front of you, you learn the matchup on Monday. How soon did you get into Stetson prep, and what are some keys to come away with a win and start 1-0 in the Tallahassee Regional tomorrow afternoon, Coach?
Well, we've played them twice. Now, we haven't seen the arms. I haven't gotten the information on who they're starting, but they've got really capable starting pitchers that we haven't seen, and they haven't seen some of our arms either. So you're pushing the reset button on a little bit of this, but they're very athletic. They have a savviness about them, like they play the game the right way with energy, very well coached. Should have beaten us twice. Like we escaped here. That one game was one of the strangest games we played. I think it was a 1-0 game that took about 45 minutes. I don't know what was going on, but it was weird. And clearly they beat up on us down there. So athletic, rangy, talented. They've got some balance in the lineup, and they've got a lot of arms. I think it's probably like us. We have to manage and mix and match a little bit, and they have the ability to do it. And they've given us fits, and they're really, really good. So's Alabama, and so's UCF. But you know what? Our team's played well. We're talented too. So this thing is, you're in the starting gates, and the 4 horses are about to run out of here, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, Coach, 30 years and 1 day later, from player to head coach of Florida State baseball, just your emotions and what you're going to expect out of that crowd and what you need out of that crowd this weekend.
You know, it's funny. Out of the crowd, I need the exact same thing. Out of myself, the things I'm thinking about here as the event, I still feel responsibility to make sure this event is a good experience for the other teams in it, the other coaches, families that are in it, other teams, fans that are in it. Like, this is something I take some ownership in, and I want it to look right to everybody. And I want the game day experience to be right. So those are things as a player that you never really thought about for a minute. But as you evolve into the coaching profession and you look at the program as a whole, I want this entire operation event to be first class and done correctly. Then when you roll out, you want the product that you're responsible for putting on the field as a head coach to be frontline, talented, complete. You just want to showcase what you've seen the guys do all year. So totally different look and viewpoint, player, coach. But man, the fans, that's the constant that you want here at Florida State. We need the animals on it, and we need this place packed.
For the first time in 6 years, Florida State will host a postseason baseball game. It's the first time in his head coaching career. Head coach Link Jarrett, thank you so much for making the time for us here on Warchant TV today, and good luck to you this weekend.